You like bad jokes? I hope so, because I have a really bad one. And you probably heard it. So there's this person who goes to the doctor and they say, "Oh, my arm hurts so bad when I move it like this." And the doctor, well, stop moving it like that then. Problem solved. Yeah? That's pretty much what Apple did when they introduced the iPhone 4. Because it had issues. So if you accidentally bridged the little metal thingy that went around here on this side, you would get signal degradations and dropped calls and couldn't do anything. And their response? Basically the same as the doctor's. You're holding it wrong. Now, for me, to even suggest that it's the user's fault, that they are using their own phone they bought from their hard-earned money. I mean, that's just rude. So I see this as exactly the same thing as the joke with the doctor. But it also makes me think about a principle. The principle of least astonishment. So if a necessary feature has a high astonishment factor, which one would argue that iPhones do, right? It may be necessary to redesign that feature. Meaning that apps and web pages and what have you is better off if they actually work for the user in a way that they expect, instead of just being cool. Now, don't get me wrong, I like cool and good-looking applications as much as the next person, but it also needs to work. My name is Jessica Engström, and I've been teaching UX for developers about 10 years now. I'm also a Windows development MVP, and shameless plug, well, not shameless, I'm not ashamed. We have a podcast and a stream called Coding After Work. And by me, I mean me and my husband, who's actually in the audience. So if you're into that, feel free to join us. Recognize images like this, where we have UI represented by the classic glass bottle, and we have the UX with the squeezy plastic bottle? Yeah? I don't agree. Then we have these images. We have the before UX. We get nothing or everything. Here, it's after UX. I know how to use it. Sometimes we actually get different designs as well, before and after UX. We have some nice looking designs after UX, and we have some regular design before UX. But I'm invested in ketchup now, so let's stick with ketchup. However, I still don't agree. I would argue that both of them is a UI, and both of them has a UX, how we use it. Now, it doesn't matter if we have a good experience like these people, or a bad one like this poor person who has ketchup all over his shirt, because it's equally as much a UX, a user experience, how we experience that bottle. And it's actually a plastic squeezy bottle he has issues with, so one UX doesn't fit all, I guess. This is my absolute favorite ketchup package, and I'm overly excited about it. I was in, I think it was New York airport or somewhere, and I just jumped up and took a picture, and I'm not even that into ketchup. But they have thought, because if you want to dip your fries, you could open it below here, and you can actually dip your fries. But if you're a squeezer, you can do that too. So they cater to all of us. That's why I really like that. So we can simplify it even further. We can say that the UI part relates to the what we put in our UI. And the UX part is how we use it. Although, as humans, we have limitations. Our sight is limited. Obviously, mine is limited. But even if you have perfect sight, it's still limited. Our brains are limited. We can't handle distractions very well. We have so many things going on. And if we are designing with those limitations in mind, it will benefit all of us, the users as well as us, because the users will perceive your applications as faster, easier, more intuitive, even better looking. Without you changing anything in the UI, they will still feel it's more beautiful if it just works. In psychology, there's something called cognitive overload. So basically, if we compare ourselves to a computer, our brain would be the CPU, the processor. So if we are doing multiple threads on that poor processor or our brain, it will lag. And again, the same is true for our brain. If we are trying to force our users to do unnecessary steps, or we give them too much information or conflicting information, we will be slower as human. It's just how our brains works. So we don't want to derail our users' train of thought. We want them to don't have to think at all. They should just work so they can actually do whatever your what you make money on, or more downloads, or whatever your priority is. I will actually show you an example of a necessary step that bugs me so much every time I talk about it later on. So little cliffhanger here. I will show you unnecessary steps. But before that, I need to tell you that I love shopping. Right now, it's a lot of Lego, actually. But there's no way I can remember a number like this. And no, it's not my real credit card number, but you get the idea, right? But if we chunk it up and move it up into little chunks, it will lower that cognitive load. And all of a sudden, I know my credit card number, which is not good for my bank, but it's good for the credit card supplier, right? So in a way, they are really good at what they do, because all of a sudden it's easy to comprehend that number and I get more Lego. I'm going to show you a more practical example that you probably meet at least once a week. Either you make it or you have to fill it in. A form. A regular form. We have an average number of input boxes. We have labels, nothing fancy. It's even aligned. Look at that. So why am I complaining? Well, I have so many issues with forms, it's not even funny. But I will show you some tips and tricks to ace them, I would say. Right now, if we put our labels on the left of our input boxes, we get 32 visual fixation points. So that's 32 places where the user have to look and read to comprehend whatever we're trying to do here. And since we are trained to read in a certain pattern, and in most of the Western world, it's left to right, top to bottom, we will get extra points here, or extra focus points for if we put them on the side of our input boxes. So we get sort of a zigzag pattern as we read it. By simply moving them on top of the input boxes, we have almost half all of the places we have to actually look at. So we're down to, I think, 18 points now, because we don't have that left to right motion going on. And it also looks like it's together, it's grouped together in a different way. But we can still do better. It's much easier for the user if we actually only ask for the information we need. Sometimes we tend to, well, I have this form, let's just reuse that and add whatever I need on top of that, turns out we didn't need gender, for instance. How often do you need that? In real life, not that often, I would say. Well, at least not if this is someone's blog newsletter, right? So we can remove that. And we can also, come on, clicker. Are you with me? There we go. We can also remove age range and marital status. That's kind of old-fashioned to me, so let's skip that. Depending on what we're doing, of course. But age range, when we are asking for the actual birth date, you guys are developers, right? You know how to do the math. I know how to do the math. So we don't have to use that either, so just skip that. But we talked about the date of birth. We have 3 drop downs here. We can actually change that as well. And I will get back to this one later. It says date of birth, enter your date of birth here. We can fix that. We can make it even better in just a second. But we at least now have 1 point, not 3, where we have that one. I'm asking for a full name instead of first and last name, because again, as developers, we can actually, if there's a space, we can actually know if there's 2 different names in there. So let's do that. And now we still have a bunch of zigzags going on. So let's smush them all together and see what happens. We have 9 visual fixations now, but there's only 8 on the screen because the other one is way down here because it didn't fit. So again, we can ask ourselves, do we really need the address right now when they sign up for my whatever blog newsletter? Or can I ask them for that later when I'm actually shipping them stuff? Well, let's say we actually do need it. Split it up into 2 pages. Come on, clicker. There we go. It's so much easier to consume than actually having to scroll a bunch of times. I don't like scrolling. Being upfront with your users is also very powerful. And here I'm saying to the user, we have 3 steps. We have 3 pages that you need to fill in. So they know how long time this will take. This can actually make them trust you a little bit more because it will feel more honest than unknown amount of pages. But this is my absolute favorite one. If we give them a little head start, like down here, we have pre-filled part of the first step without them even starting. The number of people who actually fill in your form will increase so much. Because we all chase that dopamine from checking boxes and getting achievements. So this is a super good trick, and it's also very clear for the user as well. Now let's put the button right down in the line of sight to the left. And why do I say the left? Well, if we put it to the right side and you're using some sort of screen enlargement tool because you have to, all of a sudden you can't even see the button down here, which means you have to look for it. So if we put it on the left side, right in the line of sight, it's so much easier to find. So we get that accessibility for free. Next step, it says. What does that even mean? Is it continue with the next step of signing up, or is it the next step of the form? I don't know. Well, actually, I should say continue, because I made an oopsie right now. Because if we go back, it says continue there. Now it says continue. Continue is much more unclear than next step, at least to me. Continue is something that we tend to fall back on. At least I do, if I don't think about it, because it's easy to use, but it has so many different meanings. So in this case, I'm changing it to next step because it's the next step in this process. Honestly, continue would probably work just fine when we are using a progress indicator like this as well, because it's kind of clear, but it doesn't hurt to be overly clear, I say. Helping users with smart defaults or watermarks is also really helpful and powerful. So in this case, I promised I would get back to this one. We say, enter your date of birth. Well, you probably all know that some places in the world, they switch around how you fill in the dates. And you don't know exactly what this person wants you to fill in. So change that to something more clear. So now it actually says, can you actually read the screen from back there? Yeah, awesome. From here, it's a little bit unclear. So ask for the format you actually want. Now, I would say if you're developing for the web, and there's other frameworks for other ways of developing as well, there are some tools and frameworks that you can use to regionalize your applications and webs. If it's available for you, use it, because it will be very helpful for the user and it's less work for you, but always default back to this if you can't. Letting the user know that you have succeeded, well, actually, the user have succeeded, is also very powerful, because again, we get that little dopamine, which means I'm more prone to continue with this. So in this case, we have a green frame around the input box. However, to be a little bit more inclusive, also put in a symbol, because it's not super good for all people that we only use color to portray something in the UI, because some people can't really see the colors the way that others do. And of course, marking the active input box is also very good and welcoming, like here you are, quick and easy. So start with the first one, just follow along, nothing strange with that. In this case, we are using a blue frame, and because we don't have a symbol, it's twice the size of the original one. So for those who can't see color, this will be fat, at least, so you can see that this is the current one. And please display the errors before they submit if you can, because it's kind of irritating when you have done this whole form and you get a list down below with some stuff that's wrong and you need to figure out where it is. And preferably, if you can, tell them where the issue is. I will swear so much less if you do this. I'm a rage quitter. I'm sorry, I'm one of those. So in this case, we have a red frame and we have a symbol as well for color accessibility. Never blame the user. I mean, in the end, it's us who didn't know what the user was going to do, right? So in this case, we have wrong format. That will inadvertently put blame on the user because we said they did something wrong. So it's better that we are clear and kind of humble about it. So in our case, we say, oh, there we go, wrong format. So in this case, we change that. Please enter your date of birth and the way we want the data. So again, they don't have to think. We don't want the user to have to think because it will feel like your applications and webs are so slow. So think for the user. So a couple of steps. We went from this one to this one. Quite the difference, but there's still things we can improve of course. Still a long way I would say, from this one. Other things we can keep in mind is always have an exit, so the user actually can quit if they want to opt out, or even having a way to go back in the UI to a previous step without losing all the information, because sometimes you fill in the wrong email and you need to go back and change it. Always use a contrasting color and so it looks like an input box. Things like that, of course, we can also improve on. But enough about forms. We have enough of them. Being consistent and not reinventing the wheel is very helpful for the user as well, because then they will pick up and they will already know what to do. So following platform and industry standards are quite good, actually. What would you say that this is? Any guesses? A leaf. Yeah, I know, right? I think it is. What would it do if it's a button? Not as easy, is it? No. It's create new. I had no clue. It took me a couple of seconds to realize that this was actually, I think it's supposed to be either a quill or that they're showing that sending emails is a little bit more eco-friendly. I don't know. But it's not a standard, is it? So it took me a couple of seconds to realize that, oh, this is where you want me to click. So this is from a learning management system from a school that I teach at. 2 other places in this system where you can start a new message, they were using this symbol instead, like the pen. But the third one, leaf, made no sense to me. But again, I think it was supposed to be a quill or eco-friendly something. But that's an issue. We create new. We have so many different types. We have Twitter uses a plus or a quill. We have Outlook using a plus as well, I think. We have pens, we have stars, we have documents, we have so many different things, which will make the user think if we're this inconsistent. I mean, it will take, what, a couple of 100 milliseconds? Something like that, maybe a second or two, but all those milliseconds adds up and your application will feel so much more hard to navigate and also slower. But being this inconsistent also translates into the real world. Are you supposed to go to the bathroom here or wash your hands? Yeah, I would say that there's been more than one mistake when they actually have to tell you that you're supposed to wash your hands here. Because what's happening is, for those who sit down doing their business, they just walk out again because, well, I don't know what this is. And for those who stands up doing their business, it feels vaguely familiar and we get those stickers instead. But if we are using clear standards and not going too far outside of what we know, it's amazing. So this I took, well, here, when I got here, because I'm like that, I was happy. This is what it looks in Sweden. Super similar. This one is a little bit taller, a little bit thinner. This one a little bit fatter, a little bit chunkier. I know exactly what it means. This is what you want to do. You can tweak it a little, but don't go too far outside of the standards. This is an example from an in-flight entertainment system. Their gaming site, or whatever you call it. You can see the pause button up here in the right corner. Now I get bored of this game. I start another game. Same in-flight entertainment system, same game, but it's up to the left. So what happens now is I'm expecting it to be up in the right corner because it was up in the right corner. So again, it takes a little bit longer to find the one on the left. Now, I don't think this is a game you actually have to pause, but wandering element like this is not, it's not good for the user. So if there's a standard, stick to it. Hierarchy is also very important, and especially so on web pages and apps, because it will reduce that cognitive load. And we all want that. Because as humans, we don't read pages. We scan them. And I don't know how many times, I'm outing my husband here again, but I don't know how many times he has seen these pictures, probably 100, 200. Did you read it like that again? Yeah, he hates it. Because every single time he reads this first, then that, and finally that. Because we scan, and also we show hierarchy. This is super important. You can see it has a frame. It's yellow. Look at me. This is the second biggest item we have. So that's also a little bit important. That one, not important at all. Sometimes we need to think about not only what's the most important thing on our page, but also what's the least important thing on our page. Can we perhaps remove that? Could we put it in a secondary page so we don't have too much information on the same time? So let's do another example. We have a blog with a bunch of blog posts like this. So any Doctor Who fans, this is for you. If you don't recognize it, go home, watch Doctor Who. First of all, we don't have that much hierarchy. We don't even know if this one belongs to that preview text or that preview text. So to start off, we can use proximity to fix that. So let's move them like that. Now, I would say that the thing we want people to do on this page is find a header, maybe read some of the preview text, and then click on it to actually read the article, right? So let's make the subheader stand out a little bit. So we can either make the subheaders larger, or we can make the text smaller. And in my case, I made, this clicker is not working with me. In this case, I made the text a little bit smaller because it's not here that they're going to read it, and it was big enough to actually be readable as well. And let's put some air and space between the title of the page and the start of the content. Now, I did say that all content isn't of the same importance. So, same is true for, in this case, our blog. Maybe these 4 are the latest ones or the ones that I want to push the most. So as a user, I come in here and I see, okay, they have made the choice for me. These 4 are the most important things. If you have all the time in the world, you can also read these 3 below that are a little bit less. Either they're older or less important. So let's click on a blog. So this is the blog post. What's the least important thing on this page? Absolute least important thing. Want to know what I say? The header. How many times do you expect your user to read the header that they already chose? They know the subject, they clicked it. Once, twice? Yet we keep giving it the absolute biggest, loudest font we can. So I'm going to fix it. I will make it smaller. However, now the subtitles are super important. I mean, they are important, but they're not that much more important. So I'm actually going to make them the same size as the text, but fat or bold. It's called fat in Swedish. Bold is a nicer term, I would say. We don't have to be more dramatic than this if we don't want to. Now, I will say that I do not recommend you going from an H1 to an H4 or things like that for the web. Restyle your elements so that if you have a screen reader or any other tool that you might need to watch or look at your page, it will actually recognize it as a title. So restyle is better than switching elements. So the one on the right side, to me, looks like something I would read because the content is important. Now the one on the left side for me has 4 in-your-face elements that I will keep on reading over and over again instead of reading the actual content because they are so much more important and my attention goes to that all the time. So we want our users to navigate our solutions with as little effort as possible. We don't want interference. And I'm going to show you some examples of just interference. We want to leverage the natural human cognitive process so we can get stuff for free. For instance, you have probably seen images like this one. It's very easy to read the colors if it's neutrally colored or the actual color that it's written, right? But when we switch it up and we have different colors, it gets a little bit trickier. I mean, we can still read it. It just takes a little bit longer. And again, all those milliseconds adds up. And this is interference. Same with this one, where we have conflicting information. I don't know how many times I have read stop over here. I put the damn picture in this slide, but I still go to stop on the red one. Because again, in the Western world, that's what we are associating red with. And green with go, of course. Again, this happens in the real world as well. And since I'm a Swede, I need to take you to IKEA. That's my job. These doors are getting more and more common in Sweden. They're plexiglass, they have an LED that lights up and you can switch around the colors if you want to. So that says in green, welcome, makes sense. That says out, but backwards, in blue, sure. It's not forbidden to go outside, right? Makes sense. However, I said you can change the color yourself, right? What if you're a shop that has a red logo? Yeah, every time I go here, I don't go super often. I will say that maybe every other month or so. I go in there and I'm like, oh no, that's the exit. And I walk and then I realize, no, they have a red logo. So they have chosen to make this an exit. Well, look like an exit. I have so many issues with doors. This is from Minimal, close to our home. We have in, very clear, on the left side. On the right side, don't go in here. Okay. Now, we need to go inside. You see there's some sort of foyer. So there's another set of doors inside. So if we step in, now I'm going in through the in. All of a sudden, I'm not allowed in. Or am I? They have been a little smart or cheap, I don't know. Because, well, it's kind of hard to see, but this says out, but backwards. So from the outside going in, you see the correct signage. And from the inside going out, you see the correct signage. But if you're in the foyer, you see the reverse one, which means we get the X. So I don't think they actually realized it will be visible from the inside. So again, we get a little bit confused there. Might be locally me. Most of you recognize this, right? I was so happy when I saw this sign. I understand it. We don't have this in Sweden. Well, actually, we have it on the department of the traffic department or whatever it is. They have it as a sign, but nobody is using it. This makes so much sense. Why don't we use it in Sweden? I have no clue. I will not accidentally go into that one-way street because clarity. And I hope that's what it means, right? Please? Yeah? So this is what we want. Not only in Sweden. Now, giving the user clear information and clear instructions like that sign is going to help so much. And when it comes to error messages, there has been so much research and stuff happens, you know? We make mistakes. And if you throw up an error message like this, what am I supposed to do? Am I going to call 911 and run for my life? Or do I just reboot the application? I don't know. This is kind of scary. This is a Swedish bank. Yeah, right? Do I even have an account? Where's my money? There's definitely an issue. So it's not helpful in the least. Remember these? Yeah? Oh, they are actually a little bit less scary nowadays. We have some more information now. But research have found that having poorly designed error messages will actually trigger a physical response, stress response, and release cortisol, our stress hormone. Bad, and we will get stressed. That's like, I mean, it's fantastic, but please don't do that unless you want to bug your users. So let's go with the 404 page and see what makes a good error message. First of all, it should use plain language. And they sort of are here in places, but they are also using technical jargon, which as an average consumer or average user, I might not understand. So it doesn't make it helpful at all with that. My mom would get scared. And the outline of the message makes it look more like an error message rather than a page as well. So I say we remove that. And remove the tech jargon as much as we can. Unless we need it, of course, but to that degree we can remove it. Now here we have no buttons, no refresh, no go back to start, no actionable items at all. And a good error message is actionable. Depending on what your page is doing, we can put in a search bar, for instance. They can actually find what they were trying to look for. Or the easy way out, this is the easiest one. Go back to start page. Then at least it's actionable. The message itself should also be short because nobody's going to read that. Again, my mom would, but she reads the EULA, so there's that. She's actually very safe on the internet, but I would not read all of that. So keep it short if you can, because it doesn't add to the clarity. If we can, give a solution to the problem. Now, sometimes we can't do that, of course, but here we have a bunch of uncertainties. It might have been removed. It might have temporarily gone offline. There's a lot of things that we don't know for sure. Sometimes we can't provide that solution, but we can give options. So in our case, I have made this start page look a little bit more clickable. And I can also put in a few other pages that I think can be of interest to the user. So in this case, this is some sort of cat page because I like cats. So we actually can be smart about this. If we have a web shop, we can put in the most commonly bought stuff, or if you like this, you might also like that. We can put in images or whatever we want here, because that's smart for us because we can sell more stuff, but it's also something that will feel for the user that we are trying to help them. It won't feel as, go buy my stuff, as much as, hey, they're trying to help. And again, never put blame on the user. It's not their fault that we could not find out 100% of the things that could go wrong. Even if they did something not optimal, it's still us who couldn't handle it. In this case, we're not directly blaming the user, but we're not taking responsibility either. So in our case, first of all, let's remove the red, because again, that can be, at least in the Western world, warning or error and things like that. And I also think that that's kind of important what went wrong. So we have a little larger header here. And again, be humble about the issue. I couldn't handle it. And you can be true to your brand. You can be funny. You can be witty. Whatever your brand is about, it's okay as long as we also follow these 5 steps. We get a sad little kitten because this is obviously a cat site. So 5 steps, we go from this to that. I think that's fair. 5 steps, not too much. This is TripAdvisor. They're 404-page. They actually have a couple of them that they cycle through. As a traveler, I find this funny. Well, not if my luggage get lost, but I still find it humorous. But it's also actionable. It's true to their brand, and they're not blaming me in the least. Same with Avengers. They're not blaming me. And if you were an Avengers fan, it says, "Oh, snap," down here, which I won't do any spoilers here, but if you know, you know. So that's good. And there are definitely actions I can take here as well. And of course, I need to talk about GitHub, because again, true to their brand, it's actionable, cute, and also Star Wars. Now, I promise you that I would show that unnecessary step, right? Yes, are you ready? I don't think you're ready. I'm not ready for this. And I've seen it so many times. So this is actually from a real time report system that I've been using. Because sometimes when I consult, I need to use a third-party time report system because reasons. So I have nothing to do with this company other than the actual time report. I'm not employed by them. They're not paying me. Nothing. Just the time report. So I go to a URL and I log in and I click on go directly to time report. Try to, I don't know, not out the guilty. So I log in and I come to this page where I have to log in. Now again, I think most of you are developers. Is there no way for you to know that we logged in over here? I think there is, right? Okay, so I log in again. And I get to this page. Completely different design, different colors, and I have to click on go to time report. Again, I clicked on that already over here. They should be able to figure that out now, right? Okay, so I click on that again. Guess what? I have to log in. And finally, when I logged in, I get to the other page that I actually can report my time on. Now, this itself is a whole other talk, but let's not go there. I got to the time report. So to reiterate, I logged in here 3 times. These pages have different designs and colors. All of them, which is very confusing. Now, I like data, so I've timed this so many times. It takes about 16, 17 seconds from me clicking go directly to time report to actually ending up at time report. Now, if I actually got to the time report, that would take, what, 1-2 seconds? I'm going with 2 because it's easier math for me. So that means I'm wasting 15 seconds every time. Now, you already know I'm impatient, but 15 seconds, I can't even get a coffee in that time, right? No, I can't. But that's 5 minutes per month in one system for one employee, one time. Still, that's one coffee break. However, say this is an internal system instead. So something, sales support system, a CRM, whatever you have, and we have to use that 3 times per day. Not that uncommon. We're an average size company, 200 employees, and now we're talking about 600 hours wasted per year. Now, this is the math you need to show when your bosses says that we're not putting money or time or effort into the internal systems or tools that we use because the customer won't see it, so it's not worth it. Yes, it is, because you are wasting money on nothing. Like I said, it adds up. I will share my absolute favorite UX tool with you. And I usually don't say that when Jimmy is in the room, but this tool made him go from, let's call it, not the best UX. He's a developer. Well, doesn't mean he doesn't, all developers doesn't do bad UXs, of course, but he did. And he is now responsible for UX in his developer department. That's what this system did for him, which is a miracle, to be honest. Sorry, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. That's what I'm doing. So in development, we have conventions and stuff that we can follow, like the solid principles, or KISS, if you will. And it doesn't matter if you ever heard of these or not, because just know that we can boil everything down to the bare minimum, or the core, the most important stuff. And the same is true for UX. We can do that too. Because there are hundreds of UX principles, there are thousands of US research papers and books, and for over 100 years we have research in UI. Well, not the computer versions to begin with, but there are actually not that much of a difference from real world things to the web or applications. But as developers especially, there often isn't time or money or resources for us to do that. This is Michael Medlock and Steve Herbst. They used to work at Microsoft UX research team, and I have had the fortune to actually sit down with these people. Now, Microsoft is a big company. They have departments like Xbox. Back in the day, they had Windows Phone, they have Office, they have Windows, they had Soon at one time. They have different departments, and they have a very clear, so they thought, design guidelines. They had the same UX resources. All of them had UX teams on their developer teams. However, when it came back to these guys, they were sort of the same, but a little different. And they were starting to scratch their heads. How can it be that different if you all get the same resources? Turns out, all these amazing books and tools about UX and UI sometimes are a little bit fluffy, and there's a lot of place for interpretation. So what I perceive as easy, you might not perceive as easy. So stuff came back sort of similar, but a little bit different. So they started to think, how can we defluff this? The fluffiness is my words, not theirs, just to disclaimer there. So they started to analyze all these amazing tools and books and what have you, and try to figure out what is it exactly that they're trying to say. Again, boil it down to the bare essential, which resulted in a system called tenets and traps. Basically a deck of cards that is using all of that goodness that's out there, all of those books, all of those research papers and what have you. Why this is good is because it has one clear vocabulary, and it's regular plain English. It's not something, it should feel like a spring wind or something like that. So it's a UI evaluation tool. Now it consists of 9 tenets, so 9 good things that we want in our UI. And it also has a bunch of traps. So a trap will degrade that goodness. That's as simple as that. Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Oculus, they are using this system to catch those UX traps before they release things. Now, of course, stuff always gets through the cracks sometimes, but they are also using all the amazing books and studies out there, like from Jacob Nielsen and Dan Norman, all of those. Again, a deck of cards. So if we're actually going to look at it from the example we had here with a leaf, this would be an effectively invisible element because I see it, but I don't know what it's supposed to do. Well, actually, I see it, but I skipped over it because it wasn't the correct symbol. And it's an uncomprehended element because we didn't know what the leaf were supposed to do. And what it does is degrade the tenet understandable. And in this example, we are degrading habituating, which is how easy or difficult it is to, over time, learn where to find things. So we get a wandering element. And this, we already said it definitely unnecessary steps, and it will degrade the tenet efficient. And we all want efficiency when it comes to the web, right? Or applications for that matter. So the goal here to show you this tool is to show you that you can actually rock your UX without reading all those thousands of books and research papers and study all the UX laws. I don't say you shouldn't read them. I'm just saying this is a shortcut. But it's kind of good. So before I sum up, I actually have another quote I want to share with you, which I really, really like. This is by Bill Buxton. We must adopt an approach that inherently aspires to the right design as well as get the design right, which for me speaks to that we can't only have a beautiful web or a web that works. We should kind of strive to have that golden middle, if you will. It goes hand in hand. So to sum up, when you are developing, remember to think about what's the most important thing on your page or your web and show that with hierarchy. Think about what your app is best at and show that. Also think about how you are you putting everything in at once? Can we remove something or move it to another page so we don't get that cognitive load? Do we have too many choices? Like Facebook, the design they had before this one, they had 10 different ways you could send a PM. That's a little bit too much. And keep your communication with the user clear when something goes wrong, so they don't get scared and they know what to do about it. Thank you. And if anyone likes cats, I have stickers. Also Star Wars.